Okay. Hello everyone, I'm the editor of JesusWired. My name's Ian Moss. I'm here with Samuel Day. Give the viewers a cheer, Samuel.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for having me. This is one of my live guitar players. This is Larry Bevan. He's joining us in the interview as well.
Hi Larry, glad you could be here as well.
Thanks.
Right, so before we get into your new EP, can you tell everyone out there about you, about who you are, and about how you were raised and all that kind of things?
Okay, well, I'm a solo artist with a great live band. Like I said, Larry is one of those players. Started playing piano piano and voice when I was about 7. Learned the bass and the saxophone and the guitar in middle school, then went on to drums. And so now for the last couple of years, I've been really focusing on doing my music. I worked as a producer a lot in college. I was the president of our recording studio at the University of Dayton. So I worked with a lot of talent between funk bands, hip hop artists, metal bands, the whole range, jazz groups. And so I've been trying to bring all of that production experience to now doing my own music. When I first came out with the Spark EP, which was reviewed on JesusWired a couple years ago, thank you very much. It was just me, but now I've started to gain a live crew and a live band, people that I know and trust, and the team has been growing, which has been one of the coolest parts of the process, is seeing it start and then have other people come into the fold and become a part of the process.
So now, you're obviously a Christian. Following your social media pages, it's quite obvious. So can you tell everyone about how you came to your faith and how your faith plays a role in your music?
I actually live with my pastor. My pastor is my grandmother. So there's 3 generations of us living in this house right now. And I didn't want to fall into the traps of being the typical pastor's kid. I feel like I saw that a lot, especially with some of the youth I've come in contact with, is being a quote PK or whatever, whether it's son or daughter or grandson or whatever. There's kind of this expectation that at some point you're gonna make a bunch of mistakes and walk away. And while I've made my share of mistakes, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to become part of the ministry and integrate that into every part of the music that I make. And that's a big part of my motivation is sometimes I feel like one of my main goals is to put good words into other people's mouths. So music is a big tool for that, right? You could even call it a meditation tool. We get a song stuck in our head, it plays over and over, and it becomes a part of our thinking. So that's one of the big things that I've learned from my family. So I want to integrate that into the way that I write, make sure that what gets stuck in someone's head is going to do them some good, as opposed to just be arbitrary information.
Also, as you've already mentioned, carry on. As you've already mentioned, you play a lot of instruments. You've learned a lot of instruments. How many in total do you actually know how to play, and which one's your favorite?
Okay, so we have singing. I was a saxophone major in college, so I played a ton of saxophone in college. Piano, guitar, bass, and drums. If I had to pick, I would say the voice, and that wouldn't have been my answer when I was younger. For a while, I probably would have said the guitar. And in college, I played a lot of saxophone, but I picked that up because it was an instrument that my mom liked. So that was what I chose for band in middle school, and it just became a major instrument for me. But I think that vocals, singing, is something that everybody grabs onto right away. And over the last few years, having friends that were vocal majors or that were involved in theater, that became really, really important to me. Because when I first started recording, I was really self-conscious about my voice. Like, you hear yourself on record for the first time, and you're like, oh gosh, I want to fix all these things. How can I make this better? And I think that was the point for me where I had to tell myself to be confident in my own singing voice and wanted to become better and better at it as a craft and not just as something I also did.
Awesome. Now let's get Larry involved in this conversation a little bit. Now, Larry, you obviously play guitar on Samuel's live dates. Are there any other instruments that you know how to play or would like to play?
Let's see. I play guitar, drums, and I actually play bass for our church's worship team. And I'm starting to more or less get into singing a little bit more. My pitch and stuff's a little off in certain spots, but it's something I've been trying to develop over the past couple of years. Just singing in my car and trying to practice. And in high school, I dabbled a little bit with saxophone, just as like a goofy side project. But my main focus is mainly guitar, and the instrument that I'd love to get a lot better at is drums. It's something I practiced a lot during high school, and it's something I'd like to develop more in the future.
Awesome. Now, as you mentioned earlier, Sam, you've started to gather a team around you. It used to just be you. First of all, what's that process been like for you? And how did you meet Larry and your other live guitarists and so on?
Well, as far as the overall process, a lot of the times it comes with people seeing something that they want to be a part of. So when I first, I thought I had a copy here, but when I first came out with the Spark, I knew Larry and I knew the other guy who plays guitar for me now, but I know so many bands who had problems because they were trying to write with people that they only just kind of knew, or they'd have a personnel change. So some of the bands that I produced, they had a big problem if somebody would, I don't want to say quit the band, but would have to move on for one reason or another. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this as a solo artist. I'm going to record an EP, and then I'll have something to hand to the guys that I want to approach about being in a live band, so that there's no confusion. I can say, here's stuff that you can learn, and obviously bring your own approach to live. When it comes to the tech crew, it started off as just some of my family and close friends, and then actually that's most of the people that it is family and close friends, or people that became friends through the process of either church or coming to concerts and saying, this is cool, can I do something to help? And I want to look for people who want to be a part of something, and also kind of give them some direction through it. As far as how I met Larry, Larry was a freshman in high school when I was a freshman in college, and you were playing for the show choir band. And I remember hearing him practice, and he's playing all this Paul Gilbert stuff, all this like arpeggiated Ingve style. And I mean, he's crazy talented for how young he was. And I sat there and started having some conversations with him and brought him to church. And I didn't want to ask him to be a part of anything right away, because at the time I was in a cover band. I was like, this kid's talented, but I was like, I want to see where his attitude and his heart is, because that's just as important to me as there's a lot of talented people, but you get into trouble, I think, just jumping on the talented bandwagon. So he started coming to church for a while, and then became part of the worship team, and then eventually became part of the cover band, and then it just kind of naturally dovetailed from there. My other guitarist, Pete, who, by the way, said he got hung up and he'll be here when he can from his computer. I met him in college. We were both in the top jazz band at UD, and I thought he was actually a string bass major. He plays in orchestras as well. And I thought, okay, this guy's just a guy who plays in orchestras. He plays classical and jazz guitar. He's really good, but don't get too excited. And then one day we were about to leave for a tour to New York, and he's warming up in the other room, again, for a jazz tour. And I hear him playing all these licks that are just way too metal for a jazz player to be playing. And I'm like, no, Sam, don't get too excited. He's just playing around or whatever. Well, I get to talking to him on the bus, and apparently he was a big listener of Disciple. Like, he really liked their guitar tone on the Stars Remain album, when they were using all that Splon gear. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy that I was already his friend, I already knew he was a well-educated player and a great player. I just didn't think he shared any of my affinity for heavy music either, and it just turned out that he did. So there was, over a slow process of events, I brought him in, and working with both Larry and Pete together has been really cool, because I'll write a song, and then they'll get together and they'll like do their geeky guitar stuff and try to figure out how to put lead parts with harmonies over it, which always adds another cool layer to the live experience.
Well, as you just referred to you writing, when you write your songs, is there anywhere specific you have to be, or any mindset you have to be in, or type of music you have to be listening to when you write your songs, or can you just write whenever, really?
I think Larry can attest to this as well because he's starting to experience this, but there's like 4 or 5 different angles that I can approach songwriting from, one of which is subject-based. So if there's just an issue that I get really passionate about suddenly. Oh, I think we lost you, bud. Are we still here? Did we lose our internet connection? Check 1, 2, Ian, my friend.
I'm just trying to get him back.
Okay, I think we have you.
Well, hey, we've got him back.
All right. Anyway, as I was saying, I can approach writing from multiple angles. Sometimes it's subject-based. If there's a subject I'm just really passionate about, that kind of informs the type of music I'm going to write. Because I always tell people I write both rock and pop. I know that that's not a very traditional thing, but I feel like the millennial listener today is very different in that if you ask any person that is in their 20s or so right now what kind of music they like, they don't even like that question because they're like, well, I listen to everything. So I like to kind of write along those guidelines too. I don't want to alienate an audience, but I want to bring them together. Other times it's instrument based. So if I write a song on the guitar, it might end up being more of a rock song. If I write a song on the piano, it might end up being more of a pop song. But my favorite instances are when it'll all just come to me. Like, you probably hear musicians say this all the time, but, I was brushing my teeth and I just heard the whole song in my head and I had to record it on my phone as a voice memo. And those are some of my favorite instances. But my writing process then takes the next step of it's half recording. So I'll go into my computer and I'll start layering out parts and just listen to it and live with it and put it on my iPod even as a rough demo and then try to make objective decisions about it as I've kind of sat with it for a day or a week or a month or however long. And I know Larry started kind of doing some of that stuff too. Do you want to, I know you started coming up with some stuff recently.
Mainly, I'll listen to a certain type of, a certain style of music, and I'll get sort of either a riff or some sort of melodic idea in my head. And once I get that going, it's sort of like, it's a snowball effect because you have this idea of this, of this song that you want to produce in your head, and just starting from that one idea, it builds and builds and builds. Like, oh, this would be cool. Then we can add this, and then if you add this, and then it slowly progresses. And once you have this giant ball of raw ideas, you sort of fine-tune the certain areas that need to be either cut out or added to, and then you end up with the final product, and it's a really cool process.
And one of the hard things is making the adult decisions once you have all the raw ideas. Like, I have a Logic project with however many tracks, and then you listen to the mix and go, wow, this sounds really great, but there's no space to put the vocals in, or it's just so busy because I don't want to get rid of anything. And so I have to put my producer's hat on and go, okay, if this were another band, what would I tell them to do if I were producing for them? I'd push this back. I'd bring this to the forefront because of what style of music it is. And that's been something I've really had to learn over the last few years is that there's appropriate ways to write and to mix and master and produce for the different styles of music, which has really only helped me in the long run. But that's kind of been my level of maturity I'm working on musically right now.
Awesome. Now, a question for both of you: What's your favorite thing about being in a band, about being an artist, about playing guitars and instruments and what have you?
Well, I'll let you take that first.
Well, obviously, as a lot of musicians say, it's an interesting form of expression because when you have it say a painter or whatever, they have this vision or this idea in their head and they can create it on a page or canvas or whatever. But for me, the cool thing to do is because when I listen to music, even on the radio or just on my iPod or whatever, I'll mentally add stuff to the song that I think would be cool. So it's cool when I get to, when Sam brings me a song, be like, hey, we're going to learn this, and I listen to it. And as I'm listening to the song, my own ideas are getting added to this, and it's cool that I can, express that. Like I was saying before, I'm working on my singing. So it's cool that a different part of my, my creative side of my brain can express stuff, especially in lead lines, melodies and stuff that I hear in my head that a vocalist would do, but it's cool that I can, manifest it through my hands and stuff. And obviously, it's also really just cool just to meet people in the music scene, to interact with people, because the connection that a band member has with an audience member is something that you don't really find somewhere else, because even though, like if you just met this person on the street, you would have this sort of like awkward connection because you really don't know each other. But you have, like, when a band member looks at an audience member, you gain this very special connection.
You have something, you have a common ground to talk about.
You have a common ground to talk about, and you get to express, sort of the way you feel through your instrument to that person. That's always something that's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, to bounce off of that, for me, I'm big, especially as a Christian, I'm big on the responsibility of creation. So, being in college, I was taking a lot of music theory courses, but then also taking, philosophy stuff that had to do with music. And you hear about, over the years, these ideas of catharsis and shared experience, and what does it all mean? And I'm like, well, this is something that, but to me, I didn't have as much of a struggle with it because it's not totally mental to me. I'm like, this is something God created. It's meant to be used for a purpose. And so when I go to create, I always try to bear in mind that it's not just about me expressing my feeling. And that's not to say that's not what he was saying at all. Like, I'm not putting that on him. But I feel like when I'm going to produce a song that's going to be on the radio or going to be listened to by people in their car or in the private moments of their life or in a concert setting, that's a big responsibility, because you're becoming a part of that person's life, a part of their process. Romans 10 says that faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word, right? So that means what we hear is important to how our faith works in our lives. So whenever the best moments for me have been when I've had somebody message me on the internet or come up to me at a concert and be like, I've really been listening to your song a lot lately, whatever that particular song is, and it helped me with this, or it helped me with that. And I'm like, dude, as great as it is to make music and as much as I love music, that is one of the most important things to me, because as a kid, like, I would look up to different artists, and then you get older and you would realize, like, maybe that wasn't somebody I should have had as a role model, but I didn't know any better. And while I realize I'm not always going to make the exact right decisions, I want to be somebody who, when people get older and they come to that point of self-awareness, they can say, yeah, I'm still okay with supporting this, or yeah, this has been helpful in my life or for my faith. Because I think that's ultimately what we're here to do. Even if we create stuff it may not necessarily be worship music, it might be labeled sometimes as entertainment. It's important because that's how the world gets changed.
Okay, awesome. Now, before we get on to talking about your new the Spot Recharge EP, as an indie musician, what's the toughest battle or challenge that you face?
Organization. Like, just so this is, I sometimes throw out what I call pro tips on my YouTube channel, and one of my pro tips is to consolidate your jobs and your information. So what I do with my band and tech crew is we actually have a secret Facebook group, and I make part videos for all the guitar and bass parts. We have some different documents, like for live setup, wiring diagrams, set lists, and then we bounce ideas back and forth from each other in a closed, controlled situation. And then sometimes I'll share stuff with them through Dropbox, because, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot, you're booking concerts, you're making videos, you're writing new music, you're recording it, mixing and mastering it, and you're also practicing to be able to perform live. You're creating all of your live production and, like, backing videos. So there's all these different jobs, and at some point, no matter how good you are at doing certain things, your human bandwidth starts to run out. And that's where I think creating a good team has been very important to me, because, like, with Larry, like, I just started working with him and sharing some of the video responsibilities with him of, like, okay, here's how you edit in the computer environment. And then he and I started bouncing back and forth a lot of different podcasts that other artists have made, like Lindsey Sterling, Linkin Park, people that have really well-made YouTube channels that are produced. And I was like, take a look at this. Look at how they use cutaways and montages and splash screens and all those different things. Because one of the things my grandma always taught me was do everything as unto the Lord. So I'm like, I want this to look good. I want it to be excellent and not just something that we threw up there. So being organized in order to share responsibilities has been the most vitally important thing.
Awesome. Now, last month you released your new EP, a remix of the Spark EP. What's the early feedback been from that? What's it been like?
People have really enjoyed it. I just want more people to hear it. That was a big reason that we did it. I really believe in the songs that were on the Spark. Just message-wise, I just believe they're really, really good songs. And so I wanted to give them... Thank you. I appreciate that. I wanted to give them a chance to be heard again, and by an audience, a different audience. So an EDM influenced audience, an electronic listener, because again, I don't want to end up being known as just an artist who just does rock or just does pop. And I found that over the last year, I've been listening to tons of like chill step, just while I was doing work. And then 1,000 Foot Crutch came out with that remix album, and I listened to that, and I was just like, oh, this is great. Like, that stayed on repeat in my car for like a month. And so then Larry and I came down, and I told him, I was like, okay, I have all these ideas for remixing this stuff. Just sit here in the basement with me while I work on it and pound out some drum beats that you think would be cool on this keyboard, and let's see what happens.
Which was funny because the idea of doing, because the idea of this is we're currently standing in faith to have a drummer play for us for our church and for the live band, but this was supposed to be like a smaller, like sort of a smaller production. We were like
supposed to be, and then it wasn't.
Because it was supposed to be we were gonna have like an acoustic guitar. And it was like, okay, why don't we take like acoustic sets and add electronic music? So we were like, all right, 2 acoustic guitars.
Yeah, it originally started out as like we were making backing tracks to just do a different type of live acoustic set, and then I was like, I forget it. It's just getting too big already.
And that's the thing. He's like, okay, so let's add this, and then let's add this, and then let's add like 7-string electric guitars and stuff. And let's have an idea. Let's make this giant backsplash with like smoke that comes out of it and stuff. It grew and grew and grew, and we finally came to the final fruition that is the Recharged EP.
Yeah, like I remember having this moment with Larry. Or not even with, I think with the whole crew, where I was typing out a message, and I think I just remember typing like, I've come to terms with the fact that it's really hard for me to do anything small, because it just ended up being this big production, and I'm glad it was. But like he said, it started out because, like he said, we're believing the Lord for a drummer. I'm doing some drum auditions with some drummers. And I was like, guys, we can either stop playing until there's physically a drummer in the room, or we can find a creative solution to keep playing. So that's what it started. And what's really funny is that now we're still doing all 3 sets. We're doing electroacoustic sets with the remix material. We're doing full band sets, and we just have the drums on track going through a couple amps on stage and then through the house. And then we're also doing acoustic sets. And we've even started doing live stream concerts, which has been cool. We've been using Twitch, which is more of a gaming platform, but they have a music channel now. And so we've played for people in like Switzerland and Norway that just pop into Twitch streams. And then if anybody ever asks, well, why, especially when we're doing the rock songs that are like more of the full band set, why are you playing with the track drums? I'm like, well, I'm looking for the right drummer. I believe that they're out there, and I'm believing for them, and I have them. But was I supposed to just stop playing? Like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Well, if your drummer out there would like to drum for Samuel Day's band, get in contact with him as soon as possible.
That's right.
Now, on the original Spark EP, there was an instrumental track to introduce it, and obviously you didn't remix that for the new EP, so you chose instead to remix the Scream twice.
Right.
As a Recharge remix and once as a heavy remix. What made you decide to remix that particular track twice?
Okay. The Spark Recharge was, again, supposed to be all electronic. And But it didn't make sense to me to remix Daybreak because that was so driven by strings and piano and saxophone. It was already so organic that doing an electronic version of it, it just didn't seem to make sense. So I had started using, I actually demoed out this heavy version of the screen a couple years ago because like Larry and I and Pete, we all listened to some more technical, heavier, like Animals as Leaders and like Tesseract and you know, we were into that kind of more progressive gent, like neo-prog stuff that we don't necessarily play, but we listen to. And I remember seeing some YouTube videos that were getting really popular where people were taking like...
Man, it was, because I remember showing it to you. It was Drusev Stalin, he's a YouTuber, did a mashup with a YouTube vocalist, and they did like a heavy metal gent version of Miley Cyrus's Wrecking Ball.
Yeah, and I just remember thinking like, even though, you know, regardless of how I did or didn't feel about the original song, which I thought was well written, but I kept hearing people doing that with like Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift songs, and it was just so cool. And I was like, okay, well, to keep the track count consistent, what if I did a heavy version of the screen so that the electronic listeners are surprised, but then the people who listen to me for my more heavy music are pleasantly surprised at the end of this electronic CD that they kind of get a little hats off to them too. And we'd also like to perform that version of it live as well. So, you know, if we get booked with a bunch of like indie and or electronic musicians, we would play pretty much all the electronic remixes. Whereas if we got booked on a bill that was a ton of just really, really heavy bands, then I'd like to play that version of the screen just to be flexible in whatever environment we're in.
Awesome. Now, bit of a two-part question. What was your favourite song on the original Spark EP, and what's your favourite song on the Spark Recharged EP, if it's changed at all? And both of you can chip in on that if you want.
Howard, you go first, because that's the hard for me.
Actually, I have two favorite songs on that. The House of Shadows is probably one of my on the first Spark. It's just mainly because it's the heaviest, and I listen to heavier music.
It's the guitar player, you know.
It's the guitar player in me, but it's such a driving riff in the very beginning, and just how epic it gets towards the end. And also a song that I like, one of my favorite songs in the Spark is the very last track on Whatever It Takes, due to just the lyrical content and the personal meaning that it had to me. So even though I had no partaking in writing it, it had actually a pretty good impact on me. So
awesome.
For me, that's so hard because like I try not to ever write a filler song, and I just love them all so much for so many. It's like musicians say this all the time, but it's like choosing between your kids.
In that case, which kid is your favorite?
Oh gosh. Well, I know that I do enjoy House of Shadows a lot for some of the same reasons he did. I would say on the original EP, either House of Shadows or The Screen. Just because of the genres that they fit into, The Screen being just the type of pop that I like, and House of Shadows being the type of rock that I like. On the remix, either House of Shadows or Walk with Fire. Because the remix of Walk with Fire is so drastically different from the original. I had people tell me about the Spark. They were like, I would ask them what their favorite song was. And more than once, I got people going, I really like Walk with Fire. I'm like, really? The 8-minute acoustic song that, is just not built for the radio, and that's your favorite? And they're like, yeah, it's just such an experience. And what was cool about that's the only song that I had other people playing on in the original. The strings on that were played by a couple of string majors at UD. But it's just so long and operatic, and I was like, well, I love that song too, but I'm surprised to hear you say it's your favorite. So then when I did this remix, it's faster, it's tighter, it's got this groove, and then I really like the way it ends. I brought Larry in on the remix, and he's doing all this tapping, and it's not like self-indulgent guitar player stuff where I'm just going to shred in your face. It's just this real pretty tapping, and I wasn't sure how much of it I was going to keep or not, and I played the saxophone part over on it, and it ends on this chord that is just the jazziest chord, and I was like, this is so radically different from the original, and that's why I like it.
Awesome. Now, after this EP, admittedly you've just released it. Do you already have in your head of what you kind of want to do next? Do you have a kind of EP forming in your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're talking about some video possibilities, which we started very realistically looking into. Larry and I both do work for the media department at our church, Faith Christian Fellowship of Trenton, and we were a very small team when we made the first media campaign for the church. It's called the Teach the Word campaign, and so we got to cut our teeth on our video production skills in that, and the end product is really, really nice. We're very happy with it. So we want to just kind of take those skills and start talking about a video. So I know there's several videos I already kind of have storyboarded out in my mind and somewhat on paper for the original Spark EP. And then there is at least, I think, and I'll tell you this. I guess you're the first outlet I've actually told this. But the most serious thing we're talking about right now is starting off with a performance video of the heavy version of the screen. So we're location scouting for that right now because we want something that's going to be clean and that's going to look really nice and will hopefully be kind of different, even though it'll be more of a performance-based video. Because as I do the videos for the other songs, I want them to have kind of stories. And so we figured, let's start with a performance video, something that's a little bit more straightforward, and then work our way from there. And other than that, I've got 2 singles still that we have that are in the works. That again are just wanting to kind of show a wide range of musical styles. And then there's a full-length album formulating somewhere in there. But I want to make sure that when that starts getting worked on and released, that's going to have its due and have its day. So I want to make sure that I do all of those other things before we get there to build the fan base and build the recognition so that when a full length comes out, it really is impactful.
Awesome. Now, as you've already mentioned earlier, you're already starting to perform these songs live off the new EP. What's your favourite song of the Spark EP in general, whether it's the Recharge or the original? What's your favourite song to perform live?
Favorite song to perform live? You go first.
Probably on the remix, Walk with Fire, because of how expressive I get to be with like a lot of the lead stuff. Because I mean, obviously you've listened through it, and it was really cool coming up with all these different guitar lines that I was trying to like not do the exact same thing I normally do when it comes to lead stuff. So I was trying to hit a lot of jazzy chordal voicings and stuff when it came to figuring out what chords here, what note works the best. So probably Walk with Fire is my favorite. The screen's brutal to play because, oh gosh.
Yeah, and it's not actually on the remix CD, but when we perform the EDM remix of the screen, Larry's just finger tapping all day long. Like
I came up with this ridiculous two-handed
finger
tapping.
Like a Tosin Abasi moment. Okay.
And there's certain notes I can hit, but there's so many wrong notes around all these little places. So I'm standing up.
Don't step in the hole.
Yeah, there's lights going on everywhere. I'm trying to focus and stuff. I can't see my neck, and I'm just going all over the place. But I mean, it's fun to play, but it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, for me, I would say songs that have been released. My favorite song to play live is probably Look Forward.
Oh my god, it's so much fun to play.
Because people just responded, and I know that's not on either EP, that's a single that I released in between. That'll probably reappear on a full-length album just so that it's on an actual disc somewhere. But like, Look Forward is just so much fun because all the pop listeners, they hear the synth and they get excited. All the metal listeners, they hear the riffs and they get excited. But then everybody gets excited at the same time during the bridge and the outro because everybody just dances. I remember the first time we performed it live, we had kids rowboating across the ground on the floor of the venue. And we're just like, this is really bizarre, but it's pretty cool. So we Look Forward is definitely one of the funnest things to perform live. But then a very close second for me is probably Igniter, which has not appeared in recorded form yet, but we've been performing it live for quite a while. mostly because it's driving and it really allows me to show off some vocal range. I love to start sets with that because I just walk out on the stage and just high B flat is the first thing that comes out, and I like that because to me it's like audibly grabbing the audience by the throat and going, "Hey, something's going on."
Look Forward's probably my favourite song from you, by the way.
Thank you.
When you've been performing live, have you had any embarrassing moments on stage? And if so, what's the most embarrassing moment that's happened to you?
Ooh, embarrassing. Ooh, that's a good question.
I've done a couple of things. Oh gosh. Let's see here. This is just in my musical experience in general. I've gone to play a solo and unplugged myself from an amp, so nothing came out. I started dancing on a chair during a live stream and fell off of it.
Yeah, we have that on video. That's on YouTube. Is you falling off the chair?
We played a song that's on actually one of the first albums Sam ever did, which is called Premonitions. It's actually a bunch of instrumental demos that he did back in 2009,
like high school, right into the beginning of college.
And it's a super heavy song in drop D. We just played a ballad beforehand, and I went to hit the first note, and just nothing but like clean tone came out. And I was already on the other side of the stage, trying to walk all the way around, hit my distortion, and walk all the way back to where I was. And I was like,
and he had I remember you were so pumped, like you had your metal face ready. You're just like, and it's like, wow.
I was like, oh no.
I think I've seen videos of that happening in Metallica too, where his clean channel is still on.
So, thankfully it's nothing too bad.
Yeah, I guess for me, yeah, I haven't. I have messed up my own lyrics more times than I care to admit. And there's a member of our tech crew. She's like, "Hey, you missed this and this and this tonight." I'm like, thank you, I know. So there's been that.
Forgetting to put your saxophone together.
Oh, dude, yeah, forgetting to put because when we're stage presetting, I've got the keyboard, we've got the laptop that runs all of our different tracks, got to tune a guitar or set up an amp, and then there's been some times where I just didn't have the saxophone ready, and so the solo comes up in the song where I'm supposed to grab it and be cool or whatever, and I'm like, hey, there's nothing there, and then I'll look at Larry or Pete and be like, play a solo really fast, I'll just play the piano, and I think this is supposed to happen. And the saxophone fell off. We had to get a better sax stand because one time it fell off. We had an old stand, and the saxophone's sitting there. It was on a concrete stage at M-Fest, and the saxophone just bites the dust, and I'm like, oh no. And of course, you get upset, but you're on stage. There's no time for you to be emotional about what just happened, so you're just like, move on. I think that one other thing is that we had some problems with our backing track one time.
Stopping.
We figured out what it was. It was this whole computer issue, and we can all play without a backing track. It's not something that we need in order to perform. But there were certain songs that relied more on it than others, and there was a computer issue. Like I said, we got it figured out. But there were a couple gigs where we'd be playing, and it would just be like da na 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 na. And so we're still going on the guitars, trying to keep tempo in our head, but it just cuts out. And then, of course, you have countless audience members asking you afterwards, you guys sounded really great tonight. I really enjoyed that. What happened there? And we're just like, we don't know. We'll figure that out later. And so you're making lists for things to fix between now and the next gig.
The computer decided to shut down because it thought it was about to fall over because of the subwoofers under the stage.
Yeah, it was the sudden motion sensor in the laptop that I have since learned how to deactivate. But it thought it was falling because there was too much bass in the venue.
Fair enough. Now, a little bit of a cheeky question for Larry. What's the most annoying thing about Samuel?
Most annoying? Oh gosh. He doesn't really have many annoying parts. It's mainly stuff that I do that he's a little confused about. Because it's I'll go home and I'll I've heard this really awesome song on the radio and I'll learn the whole thing, and then I go and then I'll come in to a rehearsal and we'll learn this new song and I'll forget the entire bridge of it, but I know this entire song that I decided to devote myself to learn to. But that's the really awesome part about Sam. He's very forgiving when it comes to certain things, so he actually really doesn't have any annoying parts to it. So that's awesome.
I mean, I can be annoying in that I'm very much a perfectionist. So when we have moments like that, I have this very like pet the cat moment in myself, you know, where it's like, because when I went to college, you know, being a college musician, I had professors putting pressure on me all the time. And I don't want to do that to my musicians, but I also want them to be professional. And what's great is Larry and Pete are such great players that they come through and they totally do that. But that we'll have these little moments where I'm like, why do you know this new song by Shinedown, but you don't know the bridge of this song for the band you play in? But I mean, those are small complaints compared to what like you hear other people have drama. We don't, and that's been important to me about who I bring onto the team, because team building is about as much about who you can work together with as it is how well you do your work.
Like, probably the worst moments the band ever has is either when we get done with a really long rehearsal, really long show, and
then we have to clean up.
We have to clean up, and no one's eaten like 5 hours, and we're all like hangry, and we're all just like, let's get this done and get food. And I have to, you know, I work a day job for now, and I have to be up there at 5 a.m. So a lot of times, you know, Sam's hungry, our other guitar player is hungry. I've been up for like 22 hours, and I'm barely conscious at that point. And they're like dragging me along, driving my car home. So.
And that's the thing is, like, Larry's got the biggest vehicle, so you know, I think
I have to drive.
I think the Lord, like, one of our faith goals, you know, is is a bus and a trailer, and so I believe that we have that because, you know, but. Larry has had the biggest vehicle, so he holds the most cargo whenever we're driving individual cars. And there's been nights where, you know, again, he has to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning for his job right now, and we'll be eating at the restaurant, and he's trying to get his fork to hit the food. And I'm like, Larry, do I need to drive your car home right now, buddy? He's like, but we've made it. Thankfully, like I said, between the band and the tech crew, you know, thank God for moms, because like my mom and my aunt, they run the gear table. We call it the gear table. We're very specific about our branding. And but mom's really great in that, you know, she'll pack a lunch. You know, like I'm 24. I mean, no shame. My mom will pack my lunch at concerts, and she'll drive a car if she needs to, and that's been really helpful. So again, you know, whether it's because he's got to work the next morning, or because my other guitar player has an orchestra gig the next day. Thankfully, we're there for each other, which is a big part of what, even being a solo artist, it's still a big part of what having a team is all about.
Awesome. Now as you've just brought it up, why do you call it your gear table and not your Mert table?
Mainly, well, it's mainly a level of professionality because a lot of bands obviously call it merch and stuff, and it's not to, you know, downsize or put to shame, you know, bands that, you know, only get to play at like the local level and stuff. But we decided we wanted to take like a new spin on it and sort of refresh, sort of like like industry standard of.
Yeah, I mean, I was a music major in undergrad, but in graduate school I went for business and communications. And one of the biggest things I learned in the MBA courses that I took was the culture of an organization. And so I always tell the people that work with me, on the spiritual level, I was always told, do everything as unto the Lord. On the business level, I try to have an understanding of the concept that in order to go to the next level, you have to dress for the job you want, so to speak. So when it comes to the guys or what we call certain things, it is in no way, shape, or form meant to belittle anyone else on any level. It's just us. It's just me doing me and us doing us in a way that I'm like, okay, let's call it the gear table. So it has more of an official sound than just offhandedly calling it merch, which is fine, but like it's just for our mental capacity. Because I'm like, guys, if we want to do this at the highest level, so like I have a dress code for them on stage. You know, I'm like, do not get on stage looking like you just rolled out of bed. Now, if you had an emergency, you know, we're not going to have some big hang up or whatever if you have an issue. But I'm like, I want myself and the people that are on the team, when people see us, whether we're on the stage or off the stage, we should look like we belong on the stage. We should look like we're representing a cohesive idea and not advertising a bunch of different stuff. And again, that's not to downplay anybody who does what they do the way they want to do it. But that's kind of the imagery is just as important as the music in creating a cohesive message. So whether it's what we call our gear table or whether it's how we dress on stage to look professional and look the part, I guess it's just stuff that's been instilled to me over a long time. And because I want to do this at the highest level, because I want to be playing Winter Jam. I'm like, guys, whether we're playing in front of 5 people at a small venue or playing in front of 500 or 5,000 or whatever the number is, I want to bring a level of excellence and production to every aspect of the thing without being uptight, but to make there be a noticeable difference in as many ways as I can.
I like that a lot. Right, as we start to wind this interview down, we'll get a few last quick questions in. What's your current favourite naughty food treat?
Naughty
food.
Oh no.
Okay, I'm going to kind of answer this for Larry. Larry and Pete. Well, Larry and Pete and I are pretty big gym goers. Now, Larry has been working on his guns, and he's more consistent than I am. Larry and I both spent a long time in martial arts. He's a black belt. I'm a brown belt. And Pete's just a great lifter. But because of that, like, we all have metabolisms like furnaces. So Larry has a bunch of friends that are also into like competition powerlifting and bodybuilding, and he'll tell them, as of late, Larry has been making really big efforts to eat way cleaner, but there's been certain times in his life where that wasn't always an option, and so I would say for Larry, it was Mountain Dew for a while.
It got bad because that's the thing. It wasn't even so much like the bad guilty things he was eating, is how much of it I was eating. Because it's like, if I was gonna get if I had a bag of pizza bites or whatever, I'd eat the whole bag, or I'd drink 3 or 4 Mountain Dews a day.
And the thing is, Larry's super cut, so it wasn't like it was. Because he was going to the gym every day, so it wasn't necessarily that you could see the way that he was eating, but I think it affected his energy levels sometimes. Where we'd be recording, and he just I know this look that he gets where it's just like, is this real life?
Yeah, exactly.
Charlie bit me, and I'm like, dude, come on back now.
But if I had to say on the overall, my most guilty food, it's a drink that I make at work. I take highly strongly caffeinated coffee, and I'll mix it with Mountain Dew and ice and chug the whole thing in one go to keep me awake. So it's awful, but gets the job done.
For me, gosh.
J Gumbos.
Well, J Gumbos, I have no guilt about J Gumbos because
Pop-Tarts.
I consider that, honestly, and this is weird, it's probably peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Really?
I know that sounds bizarre, and you wouldn't have seen this, but it happens to me late at night, okay? I don't know what it is, but it'll be 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'll be, winding down to go to sleep, and I think, I want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I don't know why. And I've had to watch it, because it strikes me always after midnight.
At least you don't eat ice cream all night.
Oh, gosh. And since Pete isn't here, we were at... Pete is great at eating healthy, and his wife is great at eating healthy.
He works in a great grocery store.
He works at an organic Whole Foods store. But when he's away from it, he has these little moments where he's like, I just ate a whole burger and fries, and then we'll get a text from him, guys, I'm going through Wendy's, even though we just ate, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, and he'll come up, he'll have all this stuff because he works at a grocery store over here called Trader Joe's. They have a lot of super organic stuff. He'll come up with a bag of these dried green beans that look like green Cheetos and stuff. And you're like, where'd you get that? And it's I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, that's our food quirks.
Fair enough. What's the most embarrassing album that you own?
Ooh! Oh, you have to!
I bought a Tokyo Hotel CD, and I thought it was going to be way different than what it was. I feel so bad. Well, I mean, those guys I'm pretty sure are cool, but... here, I have a whole bunch of these. I listen to the broadest spectrum music ever.
He routinely listens to the Spice World album. Right?
I have a Spice Girls CD. I have a Celine Dion CD. I have
and there's no shame about that, by the way.
I have a Shania Twain's Greatest Hits CD.
He loves Shania Twain. He sound checks with Shania Twain.
I have Enya's Greatest Hits on my iPod. I have so much just random like early to mid '90s pop music. And it's just like I like it. I can't help it.
I don't fault you for that. I completely understand. That's a great answer. Like I love that the world now knows that you listen to Spice World in your car.
Richard Marx, all that fun stuff.
I wish I had more music than I do.
Seal.
Seal's not embarrassing.
No,
I have no shame about Seal.
Seal's awesome.
But I have a couple like. What you know my music collection?
Well, like Sam listens to like a lot of stuff like POD, Pillar, Decipher Down, Disciple, all that stuff, and then like Seal, video game scores.
Yeah, video game scores.
A lot of Hans Zimmer stuff. You really don't listen to any like off the wall embarrassing music.
I do. Yeah, I mean, I've
we burned the heck out of the Joy.
Oh, okay, I'll tell you what. Here we go. It's not actually on my iPod as of yet, but it probably will be in the near future. Is Baby Metal?
Baby Metal.
That's the name of. Actually, it's the translation of their name. It's a Japanese pop metal band that is these 3 school-age little girls that have this like heavy metal
so awesome.
backing band, and they're excellent. I mean, they are really good. But if you after you're done here, just like Google it. It's actually it's part of what inspired Look Forward. Is I was listening to some Baby Metal and heard the way because they will put together. It's called in Japanese. It's called kawaii metal, which actually more literally translated means like cute metal. And so there are these 3, like I guess they're teenagers now, but at the time when they first started, one was teenager and the 2 were still like adolescent. They're great singers and they kind of dance and they're cute, quote unquote, on stage, but they've got like this brutal metal band that accompanies them while they're singing these like bubblegum pop melody lines, and it's bizarre, but it's huge, and they're really well produced. So just check it out. It's a very weird experience, but it might inspire you at the same time.
I will definitely check that out after this interview. I just had this image in my head of babies sucking dummies playing the drums and.
That's awesome.
What's your favourite album that you've rocked together that you like as a group? Is there one specific band or album that you like to jam to?
Yeah, Larry and I have worn out Animals as Leaders' new album, Joy of Motion.
That's oh my god, because with Tosin Abasi, his style of guitar playing is so different. It's a lot different than like the normal prog stuff that's out there, because a lot of people are just so obsessed with just nothing but like the low string with like the syncopated rhythms, which are awesome, but after an entire album of that, it gets a little boring. Tosin went to, I think it was...
Did he go to Berkeley, or was it...
Yeah, I think he went to, I think it was probably Berkeley. For like he went like and learned jazz guitar, and he mixed that with like heavy metal influences. And it turns in this really interesting, almost, it's like jazz with metal with like some world cultural stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, we're being kind of the music geeks that we are sometimes. I can't claim to know as much stuff as like Larry and Pete do as far as different artists, but we'll listen and we'll be like, now it's in 7, now it's in 5. Oh, now it's a hemiola. I lost the meter, and like, it's that kind of music that you have to. It's really cool and fun to groove to, but you have to listen to the album 10 times to fully understand what's going on. And so we played that in our cars for probably a year. Very weird choice, but yeah.
Awesome. Last specific music question. Is there one artist out there that you would just love to tour with? Is there one specific artist?
Ooh, that's so hard. To tour with.
I thought we'd end on a toughie.
Okay. Oh, I'm gonna have to think about this. Do you have it?
kind of weird, but like, if I had to like choose like right now, who do you want to go on tour with? It would probably be Katy Perry, mainly because of that's the scale we're going for as far as musical production.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
and just the vastness of like,
while I think, you know, we watch a lot of music documentaries for inspiration of all kinds and learning of all kinds, whether it's Justin Bieber, Katy Perry, or Taylor Swift, or whether it's unknown bands or whatever. Katy Perry is so very talented. So I obviously don't, as a Christian, always agree with the things she does with her stage show or the things that she writes. But she's one of those artists. I know she came from a Christian family, and I know got somewhat disenfranchised with the whole thing because of some of the experiences that she had. And she actually, one of her first appearances was on a POD album.
Yeah.
If you remember, oh gosh, Goodbye for Now, she was the guest vocal at the end of it before anybody even knew who she was. And I think that would be a cool opportunity, one, to get in front of tons of people, because like he said, I make no bones about saying that I want to do this on the highest level, and I don't want to make that as a prideful statement or whatever. That's not what it's about. But the more people you can get in front of, the more of a good influence you can have, but also the more humble you have to be. And I try to always keep that in mind. But also I think, you know, maybe even to be something of an influence of her life just for the span of a tour would be cool. I know personally, I've always, as far as the Christian realm is concerned, I've always wanted to tour with Newsboys, Toby Mac, Skillet, kind of the big boys in that industry. And then as far as secular artists go, I would love to do a tour with Linkin Park just because of how similar our musical influences are. With Taylor Swift doing the pop stuff now, I would love to do a pop tour with somebody of that level. Mm-hmm. But obviously we'd have to be playing more of the pop stuff. So yeah, I would love to tour with Toby Mac. I think that would be a great, really awesome. Big first tour, or the Newsboys, because I've been listening to the Newsboys since I was born, you know, and to know that they're still out there touring, and they're such a huge, like, their Greatest Hits album is still one of my biggest musical influences, because I hear people talk about how innovative artists are now, but I go back and I listen to like Stepping Up to the Microphone, and I listen to Peter Furler's writing style, and I think people discounted him because they were playing what sounded like just like fun pop music. But if you read Peter Furler, if you read the way he wrote, he's so clever. He's so deep and tongue-in-cheek and comical at the same time that I know he's not with them anymore. Michael Tate is now singing for him, who's just a titanic singer. But Toby Mac or the Newsboys would be a great, huge first tour that I'd love to do. And there's a slew of secular artists I'd love to share the stage with as well for different, both spiritual and practical reasons.
Awesome. Now, second to last question. What's your favorite Bible verse at the moment? What verse is impacting your life hard at the moment?
My favorite right now, I actually have this written up on my wall, is Mark 11:24. That's up to me. Whatsoever you ask the Lord, that are the desires of your heart, believe that the Lord has given it to you, and you shall receive it. Because there's a lot of things that both of us, and together and personally, that we're standing in faith for. Because there's a lot of people out in the world that think that God doesn't care about personal things that we want. He thinks that the individual is too small for him to try and nitpick in our lives. And there's so many places in the Word that says just ask and it shall receive. And there's so many instances with ministers that were standing in faith, like Kenneth Copeland, Jesse Duplantis, and all of them, that the Lord put something in their heart. And they're like, I don't care what the world says. This is my dream. This is what I'm going to stand in faith for. And they received it.
Yeah, and the thing about Mark 11:20, if you actually read 22 through 25, is it's flanked by verses about forgiveness. Jesus says, actually I have that right here, in 20, he says, "Verily I say unto you," and this is King James, it doesn't really matter what translation you read it out of, but "that whoever shall say unto this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, and doesn't doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith." So the first thing he says is how to get rid of obstacles in your life. That's like one of the things that he says about faith. And then he says, therefore I say unto you, whatsoever things you desire when you pray, believe that you receive them and you shall have them. So that's believing for good things in your life. And then he says, and when you stand praying, forgive. If you have aught against any, that your Father also which is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. And so that's been huge to me, is that second part of that verse lately is, you know, the Lord's been talking to me about, whether it's when I'm reading or listening to teaching or just in my own private time. I think that is, especially as artists who want to go out and have some kind of effect on the world, again, this goes back to responsibility. You have to still have your own time with the Lord. You have to still have your own prayer life and your own life in the Word. I feel like the artists who let that go due to their career are the ones who end up getting into trouble. And I don't want that to be me. And when I look at the second half of that verse, basically what it says to me is that in order to receive the things that you are putting your faith forward for, the dreams and the visions that the Lord has put in your heart, the things that you are standing in faith for, you also have to constantly live in forgiveness. Forgive if you have aught against any. Because if you have unforgiveness in your heart, that makes it harder for your faith to work.
And it's not even in just like the big things, like, oh, someone hurt me way back in my past. I mean, like even small things, like if someone cuts you off in traffic, I mean, your flesh might act up, you know, instantly be like, oh, but you know, you have to calm yourself down, like, you know, I forgive that person. You know, they just need to be a little smarter next time, because that could have been very dangerous for, you know, a lot of people.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a Christian. People have to see some difference in my life. And forgiveness needs to be one of those differences. I don't want unforgiveness coming out in my songs, in my writing. You know, because I want to write about hard stuff. I want to write about tough situations, but I don't want to write about them just as a tough situation and leave it there. I want to make sure that this attitude pervades even the way I write my music.
Awesome. Now, last question. Is there anything that we and our readers at JesusWired can pray for you specifically about over the coming few months?
First of all, I'd appreciate prayer about the upcoming Battle of the Bands. We're doing a Battle of the Bands in Cincinnati at a great Christian venue called the Underground, and that's a big opportunity. So just pray for favor for that. And then I would just ask them to pray for the blessing on on the music and what we're doing. And when I say that, I mean, let me actually give you one other scripture here that I have been focusing on a lot lately, and it's Galatians 3:13 through 14. It says, Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it's written, cursed is everyone that hangs on a tree. But then there's more to that. So why? It says that the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles through Jesus Christ, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. There's a proverb that offsets that, or that complements.
Right. Well, we seem to have lost Samuel again. I'm sure he'll be back shortly. Hope you're enjoying this interview as well. Well, hey, you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. What was the last thing you heard me say there?
That's a very good question.
Okay.
You were reading from the Bible verse.
Okay. In Galatians, in Galatians 3:13 through 14, it says, Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it's written, cursed is everyone that hangs on a tree. Well, why did he do that? That the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles, so that's everybody, through Jesus Christ, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. There's a proverb that or it's either a psalm or a proverb, and I'm sorry that I don't have in my brain which one it is right now, but that complements that, and it says that the blessing of the Lord, it makes rich and adds no sorrow with it. So when I ask people to pray for me, I just say, pray, thank the Lord, and pray that the blessing be on the music, be on me and the people that work with and for me. Because what does the Bible say about the blessing? It's the power of God for us to be empowered to do what we're called to do. So if if I come up in your prayer time and you want to pray for me, you want to pray for us, and you want to pray for the music, just say, Lord, I ask that the blessing manifest in their lives, because that covers a whole lot of stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Samuel and Lai, for taking time out of your day to talk to us today. It's been a blast.
Yes, thank you.
In fact, definitely very last question. just direct people to where they can check you out on social media and where they can buy the Spark Recharge CP.
Okay, so the hub for everything is SamuelDayOfficial, one word, .com, SamuelDayOfficial.com. From there, you can get to my artist Facebook page, like that page. You can get to my Twitter, you can get to Instagram, but also you can get to my YouTube channel. We're trying to do a lot more with constantly creating new content for YouTube, whether it's behind the scenes podcasts, or whether it's performance videos, or live footage, or music videos. Hook up with us on all those different networks. You can buy the Spark Recharge as a physical copy anywhere, I believe in the continental US at least. From SamuelDayOfficial.com, there's a store tab, and I will literally mail you a CD. But if you prefer to do the digital thing, all of the music is on iTunes. I'm on Apple Music now. It's on Amazon MP3. It's on CD Baby, Xbox Music. And there's a ton of other sources that it's on that aren't even all in my head. So just search for Samuel Day. But the easiest way to hub to everything, get merchandise, get music, get connected, is SamuelDayOfficial.com.
Awesome. Right, you heard it here. Go and check out SamuelDayOfficial.com. Go and check out Samuel Day. Check them out live. You never know what to expect. You probably see some embarrassing things, I expect. And make sure you check out JesusWired.com and get plugged in and stay blessed. Take care. Thanks, guys.
All right,
Thank you,
so
everybody.
much.